welcome back to Pop Culture Yearbook. On this show, we pick pieces of pop culture that were important to us in a given year. We then discuss memories and dig into those movies, albums, shows, and more. This is 1989 Part 2. I'm Brad.
I'm Pete.
And I'm Giff.
And tonight we are going to be discussing Brad's choice, which is Batman. Yay. So it's good to have you back again, Giff.
Well, thanks for having me back.
As we know, it's always fun to talk about whether you will or will not be on, so at least it amuses us.
Right.
All right. Do you guys have anything that you want to throw out before I get into why I picked this movie?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Go right at it.
Any new memories you've thought of the year?
Well, I do know.
Actually, let me ask you this question. Yeah. What do you remember about this movie, like the first time you saw it or something like that?
I saw it in the theater. I remember that.
Okay.
I didn't go to the theater that much. I wasn't really let out of the house. A lot of farm work to be done. Didn't have time for fun. So, but I do remember going to this movie in the Marshall Theater.
Okay. Remember who you went with or anything?
My brother was there, but I don't... Would have he been able to drive yet? No, I don't think so. So my parents might have taken me.
All right. Pete?
I know that I saw it in a theater. I don't recall any particulars, however, like who I was with, anything like that. But I know that I was really, really excited to see this movie when it came out. And I think everybody was. Okay. And I was not disappointed.
Right.
No.
I loved it. I watched it over and over again as much as I could that year, or when it came out on video or whatever. I watched it on HBO or whatever.
Why I picked it. All right.
Excellent choice.
I do remember kind of the same things you did. I was just curious if you saw it in the theater, like if you remembered being excited at that time, because I was dying to see this movie. And I don't know why exactly. Like, you know, I'm not a comic book guy. I never read any comic books. It's not like I was into superheroes, and now they're everywhere. And I like superhero movies, but it's not like I'm a huge fan.
You're not a comic book nerd. You don't go
I don't
to
even remember
Comic-Con.
I was so excited, but it got so much hype, and it was kind of the first of its kind, I guess, and it was going to be kind of a different movie than probably what we were used to seeing. So I guess that was it. It's like, oh my God, this is going to be so cool. So at this time, like you said, we didn't drive. I saw a lot of movies with my mom. Like I can distinctly remember seeing Major League and The Naked Gun in the theaters with my mom, just the two of us. Which, thank you very much for taking me. But when I think back, it's like, man, me and my mom, one-on-one on a date to see Major League and The Naked Gun.
I can't believe you took me to Major League.
If I had been with some of my friends, but at least I got to go. But this movie, and I don't remember this 100%, but I think my brother and Jeff, one of his friends, took me. So my brother would have been like a sophomore in college. He would have been home. I don't know if he was home for the whole summer or just home for a weekend, but pretty sure that I went with them. And so that was cool. You know, I got to go with these older guys too. And we were all excited to see this movie. So, did not disappoint. Like you said, this was unique. It was, there weren't many superhero movies. I think it was probably that you were expecting to see some different kind of like effects and stuff that you weren't used to. And that's why I was so excited.
Well, this actually was the first of this particular take on Batman, at least as seen in a movie, because all the previous Batmans, it wasn't like a dark and brooding Batman like this one was. And you look at all the movies since then, it really kind of changed the entire public perception of Batman, even with all of the different franchises. You know, it kind of spun it in a different direction.
I did watch the 60s TV show like in the summer at my grandma's. I remember sitting around and being on in the afternoon, and I watched it.
Oh, it's hilarious.
And maybe that was part of it too. So I knew of Batman through that, but you saw these previews and this was going to be way different. And but here, the other thing is I love Michael Keaton. Mm-hmm. By this time I knew who Jack Nicholson was. I knew at this point that's a great casting choice, even as being 13 years old. I don't know if I knew Tim Burton by name, but I knew Beetlejuice and I knew Pee-wee's Big Adventure. The director, this great choice for a director. And it just looked so colorful and great. seeing all this. And then they had the tie-ins because they had the soundtrack and the song that was on the soundtrack had all these clips from the movie in it. So it's like you heard half of it before you saw the movie if you heard the song Bat Dance.
Right.
Yes.
It was just like this great job of marketing and just really building it up, which a lot of times then comes back to backfire because it sucks. But this movie, at least then, I did not think sucked, and I still don't think it sucks. I did notice a couple things though that maybe I didn't notice when I was young.
Yeah, you might be about to say some of the same things I'm going to.
Well, I'll get to that.
You go
first thing
forward.
I wanted to bring up was just the first thing I noticed watching it this time that I haven't noticed before is that Jack Nicholson gets top billing when you look at the credits.
Yes.
Which,
Yes.
he's the big star, but you'd think Michael Keaton's a big star too, and he's playing Batman. But Jack Nicholson was so big that
Nicholson, he made a killing on it because his agreement in this one was not just like the normal what they pay movie stars. He got a % of the of the cut for the movie itself. He also worked into his deal. He got a cut of all of the merchandising. And you think about maybe no movie has ever done other than maybe Star Wars. It's a great franchise for that. And he also got a cut for the sequels, which he was not in.
He wasn't even in those.
In that franchise. Exactly. So, and they estimate that he got at least $50 to $60 million just from that one role, which is ridiculous. Especially
back in 89,
in 1989. And I actually saw the conversion in the article that I read is that would be estimated to be about $100 million today.
Just
not even being
since you brought up the sequels, just a quick side note, really quick. Are you a fan of Batman Returns, and how big?
No, I was at the time. Batman Returns was okay. The first one, I think, was the best one. And then it just took a downhill slide.
I don't want to talk about the other ones right now.
They just got
Batman
worse.
Returns is still Tim Burton. It's still Michael Keaton. It has a lot of the same stuff, and I think like Michelle Pfeiffer is amazing, and Danny DeVito. Talk about a perfect casting choice. Although the Peg was really gross, but that's a
Christopher
really good
Walken is in that one too.
Yep. That is a really good movie. It's really dark, but I like it a lot.
Yeah. All right. Maybe I'll have to go back and watch that one too sometime. But anyway, go on. I digress.
So after that, the movie starts, and first of all, I think Tim Burton. What a brilliant choice for a director. With what he's made at this point, and then the vision that he had for this it's perfect for him. Mm-hmm. But the casting is just great. Jack Nicholson, obviously. Kim Basinger is wonderful. Even like Robert Wool, the other
he is so
other
great.
Reporter.
Yep,
he's so perfect for that role. Billy D. Williams has a small role, but he fits right in there. Michael Keaton is not somebody I would have expected to play Batman, but I think great choice.
A lot of people didn't like that.
So well that they, I'm sure that they.
A lot of these comic book nerds, they did not like Michael Keaton before the movie came out. They were not happy about Michael Keaton as a choice. Let me ask you this trivia question: there was a different actor that they were begging to be in the movie, and he refused to do it. Who was it?
In what role?
Tom Cruise.
As it's an actor. They wanted him to play Batman. He didn't want to do that. Then they asked him to play the Joker. He didn't want to do that. And they asked him to play Harvey Dent, who was Billy D. Williams' character, and he didn't want that.
I said Tom Cruise. I don't know.
Pacino.
It's not either one of those. It is. It's Ray Liotta.
Huh.
No kidding.
Well,
he was
really weird. Because
his career, they thought
Goodfellas came out the next year, so he wasn't even like a name yet.
Right now,
that's like his first movie that anybody would know.
Well, I don't know. Was that before or after Field of Dreams? but he was in that movie.
So I mean,
and I think his career, they thought that he was on an upward trajectory at that point, and but they begged him, and he chose not to do it because he had in his mind, he had the vision of the old 60s one that you just talked about, and he thought it was just going to be stupid and goofy. He definitely regrets that decision.
That's interesting. I mean, because Field of Dreams came out the same year, so I mean, it wouldn't have been like out and been a big hit yet. They would have had to make this movie before that, so there's no way to know.
Huh.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that. Another casting thing. Did you know that Sean Young was originally cast to play Vicky Vale?
No, but I know she wanted to be Catwoman so bad that she did all kinds of crazy things for the sequel. Like she would get in character and dress up as Catwoman and go to like the producer or director and try to get the role.
Oh, I didn't know that. But
that's what I know.
She was actually, they were 4 weeks into filming. They were doing a horseback riding scene, and she fell off and broke her collarbone. So they had to recast Kim Basinger, and so they cut that.
Well.
And then they cut that whole scene out and never even made the movie at all. The scene.
Huh.
Yep.
Another little
she was actually
tidbit.
cast and removed.
She was cast. She was in the movie.
That must be why she wanted the next one so bad.
I would guess.
Right.
That makes more sense now.
Billy D. Williams, his character Harvey Dent. Williams was supposed to be in the sequels as well. That was part of the original agreement. However, they cut him in the sequels and they replaced him with Tommy Lee Jones. That's Harvey Dent. That's the character that becomes Two-Face.
Yeah. Well, Tommy Lee Jones isn't in the second one, is he? He's not in it until Batman.
He's in the same one. It's the same one that Jim Carrey is in as the Riddler. I think it's the third one.
But that's the third one, yeah, because the other one's Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze, and
oh my god,
right,
and the fourth one, I think.
Yeah, which is terrible. But Billy D. Williams did get the role as Two-Face in the Lego Batman movie. He's the voice of. That's why they cast him in that role. So that's kind of a funny little fact.
That's a great movie too.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
one that I wasn't all excited to go see, and then we got to it. I'm like, wow, this is really pretty.
I love all the Lego movies. They're hilarious.
So, and then I mean, I just think I can't imagine a better time and place casting than Jack Nicholson as the Joker with where he's at in his career, how big he is, and this movie, and then that role, which is just, I mean, it's iconic, and he's just perfect for it. So the fact that they got him, no matter how much they paid him, I mean, it was worth it, and he was the choice. So that's why he gets top billing, even though he's technically not the main guy.
He actually said later, his quote that he believes that he got so much into that role that it affected him psychologically, and he warned Heath Ledger that
really
that his experience was that it affected him, psychologically for a while.
Wow.
So,
yeah, he was excellent in it. You could tell he poured himself into it.
All right, so that's kind of my background things, and you had some great details to add. Thank you. The rest of my notes are pretty much from the movie, so I can just kind of go through what I wrote down and.
Yes, please.
Feel free to chime in.
We will.
So some of these are just random things. Like, so the first big benefit at Bruce Wayne's house, did you notice Vicky Vale? She wears it looks like a wedding dress.
Anybody else it's a pretty
that
gown.
Weird. Her clothing choice.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
There were some things about the movie that were a little bit off. Not, a lot of it they're trying intentionally to make it look like a comic book and stuff like that. But there are some parts where the acting wasn't really that great. And you mentioned Robert Wall. I thought there was a couple of times where it just felt like his timing was off or something. I don't know what it was.
I can see that. I mean, he's good at the role, but I can see how not every line necessarily hits. And
yeah. So and there's some of that. The top actors in the movie were fantastic, but there's some of the supporting cast. I thought were a little bit weird. But anyway, go on.
The first shootout I just found kind of funny because I don't know if you noticed this, but the sound of it was like very old timey. It was like pew 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 pew. Like not the kind of gunshots that you hear today, and it really kind of just caught me like it stood out. Like
Well,
That was the first thing
thought,
my son. I was watching it with my son, and that was exactly his
Really?
comment too.
Well,
Yes.
I kind of thought that played into the comic book feel.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
instead of like a bang, I guess you could have, you'd see bang on the page or pew pew, like you'd have those.
It was just a sound that stood out because it's like
Yeah.
it's a sound you get in like older movies sometimes.
But
it's
I thought it was
definitely
because
different
it
than what you
was.
get today.
My explanation is because it was hitting metal because they're in this factory, and so it's like ricocheting off of all the metal, like vats and stuff that were in this chemistry or chemical plant.
Did anybody else find it odd that they were just fine throwing bullets around in this chemical plant and this green goo coming everywhere? It's like nobody really thought to think, maybe we shouldn't be doing that.
Then we get into what is really my biggest issue with the movie that I noticed this time. So Bruce and Vicky's relationship, I would define as very weird.
Yeah.
So they met, but like she comes to his house and it's like we never saw him like ask her out. We never saw any like real chemistry or anything. We just saw them kind of meet, and there might have been one flirty line or something. All of a sudden she's at his house eating at this long table. And at first I'm like, well, why is she there? Is this a date or was this a meeting with a reporter? It was really weird. But the worst part is, so that she gets drunk, and then all of a sudden he's not drunk. And did they have sex? Did they not?
Yes, they did. Oh yeah.
I mean, so Bruce Wayne took advantage of a drunk woman. It seemed very sketchy the way that all went down. It did not endear me to Bruce Wayne as a person. And then from then on, the love story was just very flimsy, I thought. And I never really bought into it through most of the movie because I didn't buy it starting. And then that first sex scene is like, wait a minute. You think you left out some details here.
Well, and then,
I don't want to think of him as a somebody that slipped her a drink and then took her upstairs.
Well,
I think I'm supposed to like him.
I thought it was interesting that when Alfred brings her into the Batcave, and so this is the reveal that now she knows that he's Batman. Right. And the first thing she does is ask about their relationship. Not like, holy crap, you're Batman. That's the guy
what
I
is all
came to
this?
Gotham City for. She meets Knox in the beginning, and she's interested in the wildlife, in the Batman. And now she's standing in the Batcave. Her boyfriend is Batman, and she's like, I just want to know, are we going to try to love each other? It's like, what? Hold on a second, you're Batman.
There's just not enough development of that relationship.
That's a really good point.
It's like you're just supposed to assume that they're going to be together because that's who they are, but that's not how it should work.
I took issue a little bit, and then there was the other scene where he goes over to her apartment, and that's
I was going to get to
Joker
that
comes,
because that's
right?
like my favorite scene in the movie. But
it is a good scene. However, there's a couple of things about that scene, where you think he gets shot, but then of course he has that tray and blocks a bullet, and then he just leaves. Yeah. And so it's like, wait a second, he leaves her in the apartment with the Joker still there, right?
No, but that's when he could leave because he knew that. Yeah, they were leaving. That's how, because their backs were turned to him, so he knew he could go.
But it's like, oh yeah, okay. And maybe because he's Batman, he was stealth, and if something happened, then he would have been right there anyway. So, so I don't know, but there's the line that was a little bit out of place to me, where he's standing by the fireplace, and he just all of a sudden out of nowhere has this outburst. And he's like dark and brooding and quiet kind of the whole time. And then he goes, come on, let's get nuts.
I love that line.
It's like, well, it just came out of nowhere. It's like, okay. Well.
Yeah, I can agree. So I'm almost to that part here. One thing that I love, and you hear it early on, when they get into the Joker and he's just kind of sitting there, I love his breathing, his obnoxious, heavy breathing that you can hear.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really nice touch. And just that's more character development on him than you get out of some of these other people.
That's true.
Not just the relationship, but I also felt there was a lack of character development on Bruce Wayne just in general when I watched it this time. Like I said, he's kind of hard to root for. There's really no reason to root for him, especially after the whole scene where because at first I thought, okay, he's going to go put her in bed. I'm pretty sure it's implied they did have sex.
Well, she said that. She goes, and then I slept with you. I can't believe I
Yeah,
slept
so
with you.
it's like
Yeah.
I thought, okay, or whatever. But and I remember our friend Josh Griebel in high school talking about how he didn't really like this movie as much, and I just kind of brushed him off. And he said, "Oh, I'm brooding, and that's what he hated."
Like
And
he
I wrote
made
this
fun
down.
of everything, and it was just hilarious
I
that way.
I
So
did find Bruce Wayne to be very muted in this movie and a little too mysterious, like not in a good way, mysterious and like we need more information. And
yeah,
and the brooding is just kind of like I don't know. So, you know, overall, he's not a terrible person or character, I don't think, but I think they just missed some things in the script or in the direction that would have really helped. And
yeah,
then you
yeah.
wrote how Vicky Vale finds out he's Batman. I wrote it down earlier before that. Like, she really can't recognize him? I mean, are you kidding me?
Well, it's like this. It's the same thing with Lois Lane. Can't recognize Clark
I
Kent as
know, but
Superman when he's
still,
wearing his glasses, right?
at
It's
least
like,
in the new Batmans, like they change his voice a little. Like when he's Batman, he talks with that low voice, and it's there's nothing going on here.
It's comic booky. It's supposed to be more suspended belief,
All right, but then I did write down. So you mentioned the scene at Vicky Vale's apartment. I said that was like a highlight scene to me because this was the first scene where I felt Bruce Wayne really seemed human. I love the part he goes there to tell her that he's Batman. And I love the way that Michael Keaton plays that, and like he can't tell her, and he's trying to tell her, but he can't do it, and she leaves the room, and he's like, "I'm Batman." He's saying it to himself, like, "I'm Batman." And that was
yeah,
the first time I'm like, I like this guy kind of now. This is actually a human side. But then the Joker comes, and so you have all the big characters in one place, which you don't have all the time in the movie, unless it's like a fight scene. But here they actually interact. There's the great line, "You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight?" when he puts it all together, and everybody knows that line. And then
which
I get that you think that part's out of place a little, but I love Michael Keaton in that way. So when he says, "You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts."
I
mean,
do
love
like him in that way,
I'm waiting
but
for
it
that.
just seemed out of place.
I agree. But I was waiting for it, and so it's nice to see a different side.
Yeah, yeah. Now,
so those were the
you
things
mentioned
that I like. I like that scene. When I watched it, it really stood out to me that this is a good scene.
you mentioned the line, "You ever dance with the devil by the pale moonlight," which of course ties to how we find out that the Joker is the one that killed his parents.
Right.
That was actually not in the original comic book. It was somebody else. I think his name was Joe Chill that actually killed his parents.
Mm-hmm.
But Burton insisted that they rewrite the Batman storyline so to tie that in, so that it's the Joker is the one, and that makes it more personal. There are a couple of original endings that were also much darker. I don't know if they actually had filmed them in addition or if it was just written in, but there was an ending where Vicky Vale actually is killed by the Joker. And that makes it much more personal for Batman to get his, vengeance.
That would really cause brooding if that happened.
It would. There would be a lot of brooding. And there's also another alternate where Robert Wall's character dies in the streets when the whole crowd is being gassed.
Well, speaking of that,
they wrote those out.
Ways. But did you notice in that scene, Vicky Vale's driving that car and like he jumps on it, and she keeps driving like she's trying to kill him while he's on the hood.
Yeah,
and she knows it's him, and she sees him. What was up with that?
They're trying to get away from the gas.
Yeah, but
they're trying to get
wouldn't
further
you let him
away.
Maybe get off the hood?
Take 1 second to let him get in the car.
You're gonna kill him.
Yeah. Well, and then you think he does die, and then you see him at the end of the movie, because they could have left it where he just died because he kind of falls in the trash thing that heap there, and then she gets out of the car and he kind of slumps. So they could have left it where he died, but they brought it back at the end of the movie.
There is a scene shortly after that other great scene that I said, where the Batmobile drives through an exploding building behind it, and that was another scene that just, as far as like effects, especially 1980, that scene is just really cool just for the eyes. Oh God, I love that, the way it looked.
Well, and the effect of the armor on the Batmobile was just cool.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Batmobile was great.
Well, in my opinion, this is the coolest Batmobile of these 4 movies. The one in the Christopher Nolan ones is pretty cool because it's, it seems more practical. But this Batmobile is just the coolest of.
It's a nice mix of like the old Batmobile, but a cool,
right?
Updated version.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed a lot of parallels between the Joker and Donald Trump when I was watching this one.
Oh boy, let's not.
I thought that. I thought that a long time ago.
It stood out. This doesn't have to be anything political. It's just the Joker's thirst for publicity in this movie and wanting to be on TV and taking over. His need to be loved.
And everybody, he's got a huge following too.
And then all the money, of course, too. But then also he wants to be loved, and he acts but the acting like he cares for all these people of Gotham he doesn't give a crap about any of them, and he would kill every one of them, and he will kill them if he can. And so that's all. I mean, that I think that kind of sums up Donald Trump quite a bit right there, and his need for love and publicity and himself.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't vote for him. Whatever. Just means he loves himself. I think we could agree.
We're not a political show on Pop Culture Yearbook, but
you can love yourself. That's fine.
A couple of other fun facts that I came across. Did you know that there was an earlier 1980s version of Batman that was considered, and it had gotten a decent way down the pipeline on it, but then it got scrapped. It was going to star Bill Murray as Batman and Eddie Murphy as Robin.
No way.
I was surprised by that too, but it was
Where
a concept of Batman.
That?
It was on like a website.
Sure. Well, right.
It's where I found a lot of these other facts about this.
I read a book not long ago called Wild and Crazy Guys, and it's about like all those 80s comics, and there's a lot about Bill Murray and Eddie Murphy in it, and they talk about all the movies they did and different projects they were in, and it never came up in there.
Huh.
Yeah,
it was
was one that
far into it. I would think it would have made a comment in there.
I was totally surprised. One other thing too is that one of the original plans for this movie, they were planning on having a Nike logo on the Batsuit, which would have been ridiculous. But that was something that they had talked about, but they scrapped it probably because of the same reasons that we all think it would be stupid and commercial. But that was an interesting fact.
That seems too early for that kind of thing to.
That's what I thought too, but
it doesn't seem like a thing back then yet.
So I got a couple notes that we haven't covered quite yet. One thing I found interesting is that this Batman is not opposed to killing people, because when he has his car drive into the chemical plant, and obviously all those guys are in there shooting at the car, and he drops a bomb and the place is blowing up as the car drives out. I mean, he knows he's killing people. With the Nolan character, that was one of the biggest things, is he wouldn't kill people. With the Dark Knight,
right,
he wouldn't kill the Joker. He wouldn't allow it to happen. But in this one, obviously, he uses one of his little toys to snag the Joker's ankle and around the gargoyle that comes off.
He tries to save him at the end. He doesn't want to kill him at the end.
Yeah, but he knows
how hard did he really try?
Right.
I'm just saying.
You know what I mean? So he was more, and when he's fighting people in the bell tower, he's fighting that.
He lets
that
one of them
guy,
drop.
He drops right down the bell shaft. So that was one thing that I found a little different. Also, the Joker's right-hand man on IMDb, his character is Bob the Goon.
Yes, I loved him, by the way.
Yes, he was outstanding. And then one other thing I thought was interesting was, so the Joker, after he comes back from his surgery and now he's got his Joker face, and he comes up and he kills.
I have a question about this too. Go ahead.
So he kills Jack Palance's character, and then the next day, he gets all the crime bosses together and tells them that he's in charge now, and he fries that one guy with the ring, and
we got a live one here.
Right, exactly. And then right away the doors open and all of his guys come running in with guns and tells everybody to get out. every single one of them is wearing a leather jacket with a Joker logo on it. Those came in pretty quick. Like how?
Those came in pretty quick.
The next day,
Nicholson gets a cut of the merchandising, so you know.
Well, and like the great Yogurt said in 1987's Spaceballs, it's merchandising.
Merchandising.
So obviously Jack saw that.
I got confused with the Joker this time. Is he tan or is he white? Because there's scenes where it's like he's putting regular colored paint on his face to make him not be white. And then there's scenes where he takes and wipes that off and the white.
No, he's partly, I think it was in that scene, right? Where part of the skin makeup, the regular skin colored makeup is coming off and it looks white because that's what's underneath.
He's paints himself to look like so he doesn't scare the crap out of people. So he looks more normal. So
there was another scene where he wiped off the white, and that was underneath, like his real skin color was his regular skin color.
Mm.
So I swear that I saw both, and I got confused.
Because the other time he put the skin color makeup on was when he was on TV telling everybody to show up. That was the part
where I'm like, okay, so he's actually white colored.
Yeah,
he puts that on to look like a human.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, if you watch, you'll see the opposite too.
I thought I looked pretty close at that, but okay.
All right.
Yeah, I could go back and look at it.
Well, but that's what I thought. So I mean, I'll just go with that. We're getting to the end here, the big final scene. A couple things they had there. So on one hand, there's that really cool visual scene where he takes the plane and flies up into the moon and puts the logo in the moon. You know, that's great. But on the other hand, it's kind of narcissistic. Maybe just stay down there and not fly away for a minute.
He's got to build up speed to come back down to pick all the
is that what it is?
He's got to go up there.
That's what I'm going with.
Okay.
Well, didn't he take the balloons up there to release them?
Exactly to where he was framed in the moon.
No, he did that and then came. I thought he swooped down.
Maybe not. First, and then he had lost the balloons by this time.
Okay, so then he had to come back down and have that speed to shoot at the Joker and miss him with all the gunfire and the
next
pistols.
Question. They show the Joker in the crosshairs.
Yeah.
So he's on the target and he shoots 1 million bullets and he just stands there and never gets hit. So my question was, what happened there? Why didn't he
have some
drama, suspense and drama? Yeah, that was kind of ridiculous.
He wasn't in the crosshairs. I could buy it, but you showed us he's in the target.
Right, and he's not dodging or serpentining or anything.
He's just standing there with his arms out, like, bring it.
A really long gun. I love that when he pulls the gun out of the pants. That's another great scene.
And he kind of looks at it and makes sure it's cocked and then takes his time and points it and perfect shot, of course.
One other question I had here, because this is, we haven't had all the big fights yet, but that church they go in at the end, why is the church in ruins already? Why are the pews flipped over? Like the place is
Gotham's
just because Gotham's a mess. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I figured. I didn't want to think about it too much, but
they did get flipped over. There was a shot where somebody pushes them over, right?
Well, Batman stumbles into them.
Oh no, yeah, they all fall over like dominoes.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay,
but I think the other side was already trashed. He went by one. If you went up the aisle, he hit the one set of pews and they all fell over.
Right. I have another issue to get into in a minute, but I also then at the very end of the movie. The last line I didn't really enjoy. I thought it was kind of dumb hearing it this time again. Where what's his face? Alfred comes in and says, he says he might be a little late. And she smiles and says, I'm not surprised. I thought that was a really lame ending, actually, as far as a line goes.
And by the way, the reason that
they just had the big fight. Let's all, I don't know.
Speaking of narcissism, the reason that he's late is because he's standing on the edge of a building looking at his own logo in the sky. That's where he was. That's what they cut away to after.
Between that and the moon, him and the Joker are both narcissistic. They're like the same guy.
Yeah, well, that's a part of it. There's parallels between
two
the two
sides of a coin. Exactly.
That's good and evil. I get that.
Right.
my other issue that I noticed, and I kind of hit on it with the whole drinking and sex scene, and I'm sure you know, Kim Basinger is pretty much the only woman in this whole movie.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that.
There's
I actually
the Joker's
had that written
girlfriend,
down.
but she's not. Doesn't say much, and she dies. And I mean,
right?
Like, there are not any women. Like, and that's one thing where movies, but superhero movies in particular, have come a long ways in that sense. Because even if it's about a male character, there's still plenty of gender diversity amongst other things in the movies. I mean, it's a guy movie. It's a superhero movie. It's the first one of these kinds, but still, it's like when you really look at it and think about it, it's kind of shocking to think they didn't work in at least a few other characters in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she is pretty.
I mean,
much.
There's
like
a couple of other. There's one or two
men,
coworkers at the newspaper. I think there was a couple of other coworkers there, but
they have lines. I don't
think so.
There.
Yeah,
I think
the Joker's girlfriend is about the only one.
Oh yeah,
else who had lines.
The one that throws herself off the out a window.
You know, but even like action movies, I guess Die Hard came out a year before. I mean, it's a lot of guys, but you have some women, and John McClane's wife has a lot of parts.
Yep.
And then there are women, at least, that work at that place that have smaller roles. Action movies, especially back then, are very male dominated. But this one just seemed like, wow, that's really male dominated.
I think the only one who had lines
in the world left.
The only other one who really had lines was the anchor woman.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Because I'm scrolling through the cast, and you got to go down quite a ways to find other women in the movie.
There's a couple of other victims in the commercials. Love that Joker.
Yeah. But that's the thing. They're just I don't know.
They're accessories in the movie.
I think it's good that they have kind of taken some steps since that Batman movie. I mean, even in the second one of the villains is a woman, so that's a big change right off the bat there.
And obviously a strong character.
And she's
the women,
great, yeah.
The women in this one are all kind of damsels in distress, needing a man to save the day type thing.
So I definitely noticed some stuff that I had issues with this time that I didn't really expect based on my memory of the movie. But overall, I still love it. It's fantastic.
It's fun to watch. It's a fun movie.
It's nostalgic. It's fun. It's got great actors. It's a great director. And, it's like the first real superhero movie kind of, of this kind at all. So it led the way to what we have today. So
right.
I loved it. What are your final thoughts? Unless you have other things to add.
Well, I think you may be forgetting about the Superman movies. Those are pretty big.
Good point.
Around that time.
I never really watched any of those, so that's why they were in my head. But you're right.
I did watch those.
Yeah.
But they're not really this kind of a movie, though, either.
No, they're not.
They're much more like comic booky and just kind of carefree.
Yeah, but
without the darkness.
Superman is also a loner. And know what I thought about? All of these movies all center around a newspaper outfit or a newspaper place. Because Spider-Man, Superman, whatever. What do you call it? Paper plant. Fish wrap factory.
There you go.
Nice.
But
yeah, Superman, Spider-Man, and Batman, all of those movies center around.
Oh yeah, Spider-Man too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, because other than Batman, really the next ones weren't really until Spider-Man came out in the early 2000s, right?
Was
there anything?
Yeah,
like
the one with Tobey Maguire.
The 90s were pretty much all Batman movies, and then I think the first Super Spider-Man was like 2002, I think. The first.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yep, 2002.
So it took a while.
Mm-hmm.
All these superheroes also have parents that died when they're young.
Tough,
a lot of similarities must be.
It's like Disney movies too, though, where the parents are always out of the picture.
Yes, gotta get rid of them somehow.
We also decided to get into a little bit of the soundtrack. Do you guys have anything else you want to say about the movie?
No, I think we covered it really well.
Probably perfect, right?
We nailed it. Yeah, kudos to us.
Okay, so we have discussed Prince before on this podcast, and we are a podcast based in Minnesota, and so of course we love Prince. And so in 1989, this was another brilliant choice, along with the casting, to have Prince, who's at like the peak of his artistic. I mean, obviously Purple Rain's a few years earlier, but he has put out some great stuff ever since and just owned the 80s. So to get him to do this soundtrack is a really big coup. And it's a great idea and it sounds wonderful. And I remember owning this CD and listening to it a lot. So I thought, hey, but I also have completely forgotten about it. Like, I don't remember hardly anything else. So I'm like, well, why don't we listen to the CD too and see what we think? So, do either of you want to go first on that? Pete, do you want to say what you thought of your listen to the soundtrack?
By the way, they had come to Prince. They just wanted one song from Prince, and he like almost immediately turned out the entire album.
Well, that sounds like Prince right there.
Ridiculous amount of time. And so then they were all like, okay, well, we'll just go with this then. This is
Prince,
it.
We don't really like this. We just want that one song. They're not going to say that.
Right, exactly.
So actually, my favorite song, I love the song Party Man. That's why I referenced it a couple of times earlier this episode. The video is sweet. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Mm-hmm. It's where he's kind of in a Joker outfit, but I don't know if they're going for the Two-Face character as well, which is in future movies, but that's how he is. He's like got the split face where it's half his normal face and half his Joker face. But and then he's just dancing around. A lot of fun, and it comes at a great time in the movie too, where the Joker is going and destroying that museum.
I basically like 3 songs, and they're the ones that are used in the movie, and they're used wonderfully in the movie.
Yeah,
and that's one of them.
Electric Chair is my other favorite song on this album. I don't know, is that one actually used in the movie, Electric Chair?
Well, I'm sure they are like in the background.
Yeah,
like,
there's probably the background
songs.
Noticeably in the movie, and Scandalous is good. Bat Dance is fun too, and I like that they. I didn't remember that it was the last song on the album. I thought it was earlier in the album.
I would have thought it would have been the first.
But when you listen to it, it makes perfect sense because it's mostly an instrumental, and usually on an album like that, it just to me it makes sense to close with with like an instrumental. So, but yeah, it is a fun album to listen to. I guess I didn't have too much else to add about it, but I enjoy it.
All right,
Gifford,
so
what are your thoughts?
Sounds like you enjoyed it more than me. Oh, Gifford, you wanted to go last on this, I think, right?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
So like I said, I owned it, but I feel like I've forgotten it even existed, and I wasn't really sure why. But then upon listening to it, I'm not as surprised. Not a huge fan. I thought it had a really slow start. I would skip those first 2 songs. Then the Arms of Orion kind of weird love song.
That
really
was
slow.
I mean, that was just like part of the whatever.
Scandalous.
Part of that stupid love
I wrote
story.
Down, that's another one of those long Prince songs. I just said I'll pass. So I'm 4 songs in now. I'm not enjoying this. Like I said, I could have been 3 songs to me. Bat Dance, which I love. Party Man. And Trust. And Trust is played at the end of the movie.
Trust, yes, is a good one.
Parade is going on, and he's throwing the money around. That's great. Lemon Crush is the other one I wrote down that I thought was like okay. But those 3 songs, Batman, Party Man, and Trust, are the only ones I really liked. I do remember a lot of the quotes in Bat Dance, but I had forgotten that basically the whole song is just quotes. Like there's not even really any lyrics to it.
With the beat behind it, yeah.
There are
it's
some
fun
lyrics.
The way it's done, though. Yeah.
There are some lyrics at the very end, but I mean, it was brilliant. They just totally sold the movie. You got Prince, you got these quotes. Who doesn't want to go see this? So I just thought this is a fantastic idea to have Prince do this. And some of the songs are great, especially the ones that like were featured in big scenes in the movie. But as an album, I'm not going to listen to this again.
I could have swore that they had put 1999 on the original on the soundtrack.
I don't remember that at all.
But maybe I'm misremembering. But I thought
why would they do that?
Well, I thought that they put it on because it kind of fits actually with the movie, and I thought I remember it being on the album, just as an extra, another release. and I thought it was on the album. And when you listen to the lyrics, it kind of fits with that final scene in a way. But
I don't remember.
But I thought that was where the first time that I had ever heard that song was 1999. I thought it was from the Batman album. Obviously, it was on the other album, the 1999 album, but I thought it was on this album too.
They also put Bat Dance on the 1999 album. It was a hidden track back in 1982.
Oh my God!
And
I'm gonna add. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna add a laugh track to the sound for this podcast, and use it on that one.
Going the GIF mentioned.
There you go.
Do you have any new to add then, GIF?
No, I kind of agree with Pete that Party Man is definitely my favorite off of that. The video is so much fun. It's classic Prince. The Bat Dance, to me, like Brad mentioned, it's pretty much just lines from the movie.
It's an advertisement.
So really, yeah, it's a trailer for radio.
Yeah.
Instead of having a movie trailer that you watch, really,
isn't that brilliant?
It is. And nobody else does it.
The other thing I like about that song is that Prince he recreates like the original theme too, like the Bat Dance, like
Yes.
And that's nice. That's a nice touch.
Right.
So I really like that song. And like I said, it's like an advertisement. It's a radio trailer. What a wonderful description.
Yeah. And then Trust, of course, because it's in the movie and the Joker's dancing to it was just wonderful. Put his hands up on the beat and just absolutely love that. So yeah, those are the three big ones that I really enjoyed listening back to.
All right. And now, so since we talked soundtracks, we're going to do movies in our next episode and TV in our fourth episode of this month. So we decided to make a list of some soundtracks that we like, whether it's a top 5 or, as me and GIF like to do, a few extras.
Well, there's a few extras.
So, who wants to go first? What are your soundtrack lists that you've owned or liked?
I can go first.
Do it.
Well, another Prince one. Purple Rain, I think tops the list for me.
I didn't even think of that as a soundtrack. Really? Well, just because
it is. It's like
an album of its own. But yeah, okay, I'll add that to my list.
Okay, I just thought that was like automatic.
Well, it should be. Yes.
Everybody's top 5. Singles, I actually had that one. Listened to that one a lot when I was in college.
That's one I forgot. Great choice.
Footloose is a classic one for me. Back in the 80s, it had a lot of really good songs. And then you had Top Gun. I had that one on there too. Kenny, you got to go with Kenny Loggins, right, for soundtracks.
Loggins nailed the 80s.
Oh,
yes,
so good.
Pulp Fiction. I had that was another one that I listened to all the time, and my college roommates all loved it when we played it. Another one that I had on the list that I remember listening to a lot was the soundtrack for Stand By Me. Do you remember that one? It was like all the 50s songs. It was like really my first exposure to, or my, not necessarily first, but best exposure to like the 50s and that kind of old music.
And then we also had those Time Life 50s tapes. And so I, as a kid, I was way into that stuff. And that's a great choice.
It had like Buddy Holly was on it, and
Lollipop was on there.
Yes. So that pretty much rounds out my list.
All right. Hey, GIF, how about you go?
All right. Well, I've got quite a few on here that are movies about musicians. So obviously you're going to have a lot of great music in those. So like I had Rocket Man, the Elton John movie that came out a couple years ago.
Do you like that? Because it's not Elton John singing.
No, and we're going to get into that here in a minute in my top 5. Because you may have an issue with some of my top 5s.
Well, but you like those versions?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Because they're fun when that
came out, my son had added that album to his playlist, and like whenever it would come on, I'm like, I don't want to hear this version. I wish he would have had the actual Elton John versions.
Sure.
So.
But again, I was a fan of the show Glee, and if you ever got the season
I only watched 1 year
soundtracks of their versions of those songs I really enjoyed as well. So I also had Forrest Gump, a lot of great songs
yeah.
Forrest Gump throughout the years.
Oh,
as he
yes,
grows up.
great choice.
I took Reservoir Dogs instead of Pulp Fiction. That's a wonderful.
What's
Quentin
on Reservoir
Tarantino.
Dogs?
Stuck
in the Middle, I suppose, is on there.
Stuck
Stuck in the middle,
with you.
but the soundtrack has it's like where Stephen Wright is the DJ at the radio station and he's playing all these songs. So it's almost like you're listening to a radio station.
Huh.
But one of my roommates had the Reservoir Dogs soundtrack, and we listened to that one quite a bit in college. But Quentin Tarantino,
who had Reservoir Dogs T-shirts?
Dave.
No, me and Pete and Hummel and
Hummel,
Haken,
and Randy Hummel.
We had numbers on them when we wore them and played softball.
Oh, awesome!
And I found mine just like 2 years ago.
With 2 G's.
Oh God. I also had, of course, Purple Rain. Purple Rain, obviously a great one. But my top 5, Bohemian Rhapsody. So many great Queen songs.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Now we get into, again, where, the artists are singing. Yesterday, with that movie that came out a few years ago where the guy,
I love that movie. I've seen it
nobody.
twice.
Oh, I love that movie too. And the music in it.
Is it the Beatles or other singer?
Well, he's doing the singing. The characters.
Right. Okay. That's what's on the soundtrack.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, if you look it
up.
Well,
I actually have one. So you think I'm going to object to that one or something?
Well, because I've got my number 3 in here. Is Rock of Ages.
Oh yeah.
Where they're actually mixing songs. The artists are singing different songs at the same time, but there's so many bangers in there. The 80s hair bands, any soundtrack that has Pour Some Sugar on Me is always going to be high on my list.
A soundtrack is a soundtrack. You're not breaking any rules.
I
actually enjoyed that movie. I thought it was very entertaining.
Oh, it's very, very good.
I love Tom Cruise. He's really good in that.
My number 2 is the Dukes of Hazzard soundtrack.
Oh my God.
The new movie?
Yeah.
Oh God.
I'm not kidding. You got Mississippi Queen, Shoot to Kill, Black Betty, Flirting with Disaster, Call Me the Breeze. There's so many great songs, Southern rock songs on that album.
Isn't it Willie Nelson singing the Just a Good Old Boy song?
At the end, at the beginning they come in with Waylon Jennings, and at the end it's Willie Nelson. But that soundtrack, I absolutely love that soundtrack.
Is there a Jessica Simpson song on it?
She does Boots Are Made for Walking.
Oh, well, that's a good song.
Yeah. But LaGrange is in it. ZZ Top. It's so good. And my number 1.
Interesting.
My number 1 is Dazed and Confused. The soundtrack, a movie, any movie that starts with sweet emotion, with that the beginning of that song, and it's still in the black on the screen, and then boom, you got the sweet GTO Judge in slow motion running through the parking lot as that song comes on. Oh, it's just that great way to kick off a movie.
All right. So mine are going to be somewhat more unique. I'm not going to have any that you guys said, except, of course, Purple Rain, which I had at number 1.
Which you didn't have. Liar.
Well, you brought up the Rocket Man and that Beatles one. So this is down at the bottom of my list, but I'll start with that. So the movie I Am Sam with Sean Penn. Mm-hmm. Remember that movie? That soundtrack is all Beatles songs, but they're all sung, like Ben Folds sings one and Eddie Vedder sings one. It's all like covers and they're fantastic covers, in my opinion. And so that's actually one. I didn't love the movie. I don't even know if I ever watched the whole movie. And some of those Beatles songs, I didn't really know much until that came out. There's the version of Across the Universe is like I just love it. So that one, it's all Beatles songs, and they're all by like contemporary artists, and I love it. So that's a good one. I had the Austin Powers soundtrack. There's a lot of really cool songs on that. Some of the 60s songs, but there's also some like newer ones as well. It's a nice mix. But like the Soul Bossa Nova by Quincy Jones, like the songs that he dances to and stuff. They're really fun. Tin Cup Tin Cup is a great soundtrack.
Yeah.
Really?
Country song.
Yeah.
It's got George Jones on it. One more.
Think of that one.
And there's a Chris Isaak song on it, which that's what sold me on it. But there's a lot of good songs on that one.
Yeah.
Two of my favorite movies of the 90s have soundtracks that I love. One is Beautiful Girls. That's got Beth by Kiss, and that also has a Chris Isaak song on it. And there's like a bunch of
never shuts up about Chris Isaak.
I know. Good Lord. 2 episodes in a row with Chris Isaak.
That one and this next one are two of those.
Don't even get him started on Paul Rudd either.
Hope Floats is going to be his top soundtrack.
Anyway, Beautiful Girls and my next one are two soundtracks that I would have in that rotation that I would listen to in the car.
I know what you're going to say. I know where you're going.
And the next one is Swingers.
Yep.
Okay.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Which, that was the height of the whole swing revival, and I loved that, and some people look back and don't, but I thought it was great. And Big Bad Voodoo Daddy did most of that soundtrack, and we saw them in concert, and I had their album besides this one, too. Swingers was awesome, and I was obsessed with both movies, especially Swingers, so those soundtracks just very special to me. Reality Bites, I'm surprised either one of you mentioned that.
I was waiting for you to go with Reality Bites.
That's a great one.
Yes.
And then I have two more. The Commitments, which I don't know that either of you would have seen. It's a movie from 1991. It's kind of an independent movie. It's set in Ireland. It's about these Irish guys that try to form a band and like kind of become the next U2. Or no, they're not trying to be the next U2, but somebody makes fun of them that way. But they do Motown songs. So it's a bunch of Irish guys, and they're singing like these old Motown classics. Mm-hmm. And the movie is hilarious and great. Gifford, you'd love it. If you've never heard of it, I'm going to recommend you to watch it. The Commitments.
I'm right.
And the soundtrack is just fantastic. And that's where I learned about the song Mustang Sally, which is one of my go-to karaoke songs. Right. And then my last one is from 1989. Also, When Harry Met Sally. Harry Connick Jr. did the whole soundtrack, and it's mostly piano, and it's wonderful. And standards. What's the big song? It Had to Be You is on there.
Oh, right.
And then he does this instrumental piano version of Winter Wonderland that's on there. That's another one I've listened to a million times. So that is my list of soundtracks.
Awesome.
That's a good one.
Very, very good.
Well, we all kind of had a little different lists there. That's good.
Absolutely.
That's what the show is all about, sharing opinions.
Say, Pete, you know how when we end the show and we've got Preacher Row as our outro music? Could we get Brad's version of, what was your karaoke song? Mustang Sally. Can we get a recording of Mustang Sally, Brad's karaoke for the outro music? I think that would.
We have to wait for the pandemic to be over and then go do karaoke again.
I will say
we'll get a recording.
On my 40th birthday, we went out with all of the guys, but then Kim was with and driving and everything, and we did karaoke at the end of the night, and she did have video of me doing it then. So I don't know if she could find it anymore, but. It did exist. I didn't sing that song, though. Gifford, you'll love this. I sang Sold by John Michael Montgomery.
Oh, I love that song.
And then me and Hummel sang Take It Easy by the Eagles because Glenn Frey had just died right before that. So
what you're saying is...
I remember that night. Yeah, I remember that night.
Went to the room where
we saw the room.
The Mystery Science Theater type room thing. It was hilarious.
So your 40th birthday was like the cast of Batman. Only one woman there. Is what you're saying.
Yep.
That's pretty much right, yeah.
And we were missing you and Mark Hamilton.
Yes. Sorry about that.
All right, well, I think that wraps up this episode. The next episode is where we are going to really take off worldwide because we're going to be talking about the greatest cinematic masterpiece of all time, Roadhouse,
which I had never seen until the other day.
You are welcome, Brad. You're welcome for introducing you to the movie Roadhouse.
I did know it was one movie I should watch at some point, but I figured I never would at this point, and now you gave me the excuse.
This podcast is changing our lives. Maybe even for the better.
Yes.
All All right, we'll wrap it up with Preacher Row, and be sure to give us a listen, give us a like, give us a follow on Facebook.
Give us a review
Twitter.
on iTunes, please.
Yes, we would love that, as long as it's a positive one.
Yeah, if you like us. Otherwise, don't bother. Why would you do that?
All right, thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
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 Standing on my own 2 feet. No one's here to comfort me. Sorry for what I have done. Sorry that your son is gone. 7 steps and it will be my last. Hands tied, tell me on my back. I turn and I look to you. I'm scared, but there's nothing I can do.